Greetings, my friend. Here we are today at Vatican City for the Sleeping Man podcast. You see behind me the crowds of people waiting to get into the Vatican. We are online as well to get into St. Peter's Basilica. I'm looking forward to interviewing a few people, asking them about some of the fun secrets of the Vatican and some deeper philosophical, theological questions as well. This is the famous obelisk that was moved, I believe, hundreds of miles on a special barge built specifically to carry it and placed here at the Vatican.
Questa attesa, questa speranza, ponenza di questo albero, accoglienza per gli uccellini del cielo. Ecco allora, in questo cammino sia questa pazienza di Dio che nella nostra vita, che ci fa camminare adagio, non per dimostrare la nostra potenza e la nostra forza, anche se viene.
Weren't allowed to film the interview, but he had a lot of interesting things to say about original sin. He said that Catholicism doesn't really address some of the issues we asked about, such as where the snake in the Garden of Eden comes from. It's left more to mystery. So some of the things we'll never know. And original sin, we talked about that. As far as the chronovisor, he had no comments on what might be hidden in the Vatican archives. So we'll have to leave that to the mysterious beyond. But it was a great conversation, and he was pretty candid about just admitting that many things we'll never know. Saying that Genesis really didn't describe a lot about original sin and angels making choices to go to the other side or fall from the grace of God. So I guess we're just left with these open-ended mysteries, and we'll enjoy the beauty of the Vatican. Well, thanks for joining in. We had a great time here. Probably took us only about an hour to get through the line. The St. Peter's Basilica was beautiful. We got to see Bernini's sculptures, saw Michelangelo's carving of the Pieta. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to get anybody to speak on film, but I did the best I could to transcribe what was said to me. And all in all, it was an excellent trip. And here we have some holy water right from the Vatican. I'm about to fill up, and hopefully I'll get holier. Now I'm about to take my first sip of holy Vatican water. I'm hoping it has an effect on me. Honestly, I have no idea. But I saw somebody else drink out of it, so I know it's at least safe. Yeah, it's definitely holy. There's all types roaming the Vatican. You never know who you might run into.
Jude, you look like an Italian Formula One race car driver. Or is it Formula Two? I don't know, but whatever. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I got one of these Rome hats for €8 by the Vatican. I thought it'd be kind of fun.
Oh, yeah, it looks good. Looks good. So you're back from Rome. Well, you're back from Italy. We can talk a little bit about
back from Roma. I mean,
we want to focus on the Vatican. But
yeah, we traveled around. I mean,
you went
that's
right
one thing in Italy,
there.
where you can count on beautiful churches in every little town, from big cities to little towns.
It's all beautiful in Rome. I know so many people that have been to Italy this year. I know a lot of people that have been there.
Yeah, I know. It's interesting. Brie and I were talking about that, and I wonder if it's one of those things that's like on the bucket list, and the world is so crazy right now. Maybe maybe we should scratch an item or two up that.
You couldn't have gone at a more difficult time. You went right at the beginning of the Israeli conflict.
Yeah, it's true. And honestly,
was anything
many conversations were had
over there about that?
Yeah, to that fact. Well, like between Bree and I'm honestly, I mean, you guys know, I don't really, I'm, half Jewish, and I think about the ramifications of that, especially when there's, you know, current events like they are.
Yeah.
I was told I was on a watch list after 9/11. I've told you that story before. I mean, it's kind of funny. It's like, how many Jewish terrorists has anybody ever known?
I don't understand that at all.
Yeah, it's crazy. But,
Yeah.
you know, I once had a friend tell me, like, I have some Jewish pride tattoos. You know, Greg, you've seen them all. And they're nothing big, but Hebrew letters or whatever I'm in.
Yeah.
And
you got quite a
somebody
few.
once told me, like, yeah, if there's an anti-Semite terrorist on a plane and they get a look at your tattoos, it might be like you might be the first person they kill. I'm like, I never thought of it that way, but maybe you have a point.
No, I think that's a stark reality. Unfortunately, I think you could get killed because of your tattoos.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like,
and your biggest
I never thought of that when I was getting tattooed. It was in the 90s. I did it,
Yeah, I don't think we were thinking about that too much back in the 90s, unfortunately. But one of the things I will say that I'm very skeptical of before we get into the whole discussion on the Vatican, just because of current events and where we are today, is the whole ceasefire in Israel. I have a real problem with our diplomats, including primarily the U.S. diplomats, because you know what? Most of these diplomats have never been in a fight in their life. They don't. And Joe Biden, I can promise you, never been in a fight in a single life. He talks all this shit about him being some tough guy, taking Donald Trump out and back to the school, corn pop, all complete bullshit. You people who've been subjected to significant violence don't talk like or act like Joe Biden. They don't have that tough guy attitude. So we know that these guys don't have any concept of having violence directed at them. And so this is what I just got this to say about this whole thing.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I have been through significant violence in my life. I hung out with, some guys that they just like to fight. And I can say that I've never started a fight, but I've had violence directed at me. I've seen violence directed at people where people have been severely hurt. I was in prison, in a penitentiary. I saw the kind of shit that violence brings. And so when we talk about in diplomacy, when we talk about measured response, right? I have such an issue with that because it's a false narrative. And I'll tell you why it's a false narrative. I know that you and I don't know if you remember this, we chased a thief through the streets of Schenectady. You remember that?
I do. I used to tell that story.
Yeah. My sons were with us. I probably would have been semi-hesitant if I didn't have those two brutes with us. But anyway, but we, that was someone who stole something from somebody, and down the street they went. We caught them and they were arrested. I think he was a heroin addict too, so the guy wasn't in very good shape for a whole host of reasons. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. Hamas in Palestine did the optimal that it could do, because that's all they could do. You're talking about not an organized army. 33% of the missiles they fire into the air and back in Gaza. What people don't, so this measured response thing is just complete bullshit, because if they had a nuclear missile, they would launch that into Israel in about 3.5 seconds.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah. So what we're saying is, measured response. Are you kidding me? Are you seriously? The measured response is we should level Gaza. I know, women, children, but here's the thing. What's the definition of insanity?
Doing the same thing over and over again.
Right. Hoping for a different result. Right.
Yeah. Einstein.
I forget how many agreements we've had with Hamas that they have not stuck to one of them. I think there's like 25 agreements that we've had with Hamas, and they haven't stuck to one of them. And so you have all these politicians talking about measured response. They obviously have never been in a fight, because here's what happens in a fight. You're in a fight, some guy punches you in the face, or hits you in the cheek, maybe doesn't do too much damage, you don't look at him and go, wait a minute, I'm just going to hit you in the cheek as hard as you hit me, just so we have measured response. You don't fucking do that, right? It's so ridiculous. It goes out of the realm of reality into this bizarro world. When you're in a fight, you fight to win because it's either do or die. You're either going to get your ass kicked and you might both kick one of those asses, but you got to try and win.
But like Hamas knew they weren't going to win. They did that to put the eyes of the world upon their war, right? But they knew they weren't going to beat Israel.
No, of course they weren't. They don't have an army. None of these terrorist groups, Hezbollah probably has the most organized group in the northern part of Israel. But when they talk about measured responses, that is such a fucking cop-out. And we haven't won a single war since we've been doing that. I was listening to, who's smart as smart can be, knows history. I'm just totally blown away. Vivek, every time I hear him speak, he was on, he schooled Piers Morgan. Like I was like, this guy definitely should be president. He knows history. He knows the Armenian history. He knows that whole area, the history of that area. And he is so damn smart. I'm like, every time I hear him talk, he just schools the shit out of people.
Yeah, I haven't listened to, I think since the first debate, that was the first one. And it was definitely the best in that, I think.
And people who don't know what they're talking about. Most people have no idea what they're talking about, just on a historical level. But you get back to human nature, and we can't keep doing this where, we're going to do a measured response. Oh, we're going to put the missile through the window into the toilet where the guy uses the bathroom and kill him, but none of his kids, and got to stop. All this shit's got to stop.
What do you think about, didn't we have more airstrikes in Syria today or no?
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's another great example. I was going to bring this up. So we have been provoked we've been provoked by Iranian proxies over 100 strikes on U.S. targets. Okay. And our response back is we're blowing up 7-Elevens where nobody's in them. I don't know what they say they're weapons caches and all this bullshit. When you watch them blow up, they don't blow up like weapon caches. They just poof and the building falls down. They could be dilapidated, vacant buildings in these remote areas in the Middle East. We have got to really, and then the whole Ukrainian thing, just to kind of throw that into the mix, that's a lost war. We have lost that war, and no one's admitting it. You'll see. The United Nations is now calling for a peace. You want to know something? This is good. This will get us in all kinds of shit.
Oh my God. Yeah, I know. I just like, how can there be a good outcome? But I don't know what the best.
Well, here's the bottom line. I don't believe for 1 minute that Vladimir Putin is evil. I don't believe that. I believe he believes in the sovereignty of his country. Now, I may not agree with it. Okay. You know what? They're willing to say Vladimir Putin's evil. They're willing to talk about Saudi Arabian family, the royal family being pariahs, but they don't talk about Hamas. And they don't talk.
Yeah, and it's weird.
Isn't it weird? I mean, give me a break. They don't talk about any of that. Our diplomats. And then Barack Obama, who was the worst thing that ever happened to the Jews. The Jews have got to stop voting Democratic. You got to wake the fuck up, put on your big boy pants, admit the reality of your goddamn rogue party. And also Republicans that go along with it. There are many Republicans that are going along with it. But Barack Obama got on a podcast 2 weeks ago and said both parties' hands are dirty. You know what I mean? And so it's just so ridiculous that we are listening to these people who have started wars, have gotten us into all kinds of shit. They're never-ending wars. We got to stop listening to them. Vivek is fantastic. He's like, we shouldn't be in any of them. Israel has a right to defend itself. However, it's got to defend itself. I agree 100%. But that does not mean that we have to be involved in those wars. We got to stay out of this shit. The Ukraine.
Yeah, we shouldn't be funding.
Yeah, we shouldn't be funding them. Maui, right? Maui. It would cost $5 billion to rebuild Maui. Okay. The Pentagon accidentally sends $6 billion cash to the Ukraine. we have got so many fucking problems in this country, and we are doing nothing to fix it. We are in all these other countries spread thin. You know, that was the fall of the Roman Empire. They got so spread out that they couldn't defend themselves. They spread themselves out thin, and they couldn't defend Rome. And
we're
then
back in Rome. Rome. It is a great city. It's
which segues right
amazing energy.
Which segues right into our next subject, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to walk streets that are, 10,000 years old, or at least 5,000. Depends who you talk to, right?
Yeah.
I was in a castle. This was in Tuscany, but I was in a castle that was, I think, 66 AD.
Oh my God. No kidding.
And it was not, it was abandoned and we were trespassing, but you could see it we just saw these ruins, up on top of a hill.
Were you the only one there? Were you the only one
there? And then I heard shots, and people are hunting all over the place in Italy. Like, they don't care. Like, you just go behind the house and shoot a boar. There's no hunting season or this or that.
No, anything goes there, right? You saw
in the woods. I'm like, holy shit, we got this. We're in this creepy castle, but it was cool.
Is that right? What was the purpose? What was the castle? Was there any purpose? Was it the Medici family, or was it anything like that, or was it just?
I feel like there was a church in every town and a freaking castle. So at one point, they were like little feudal kingdoms everywhere, and some like I think it was the city of Siena, and it was made up of these little quarters that were like little feudal boroughs. And they would get together twice a year and do this like horse race in this big park in Siena. It was kind of cool.
I think I have heard of that, and I've actually seen it on TV and like National Geographic thing. Or did they just race? It's just horses they race.
I think it's crazy though. It's like a brick. It'd be like going to a small park, like the size of what's the main park there in Albany, like right off Madison.
Washington.
Yeah, like Washington Park. But it's a brick, like it's a circular road with like restaurants around it and stuff. But they have this freaking horse race in a small, there's no coral or like no fencing, no nothing. It's just they run this loop around the middle of almost like a square or a park, but it's all made out of bricks.
What's
people
the
just gather around, and I think they might even go through the streets, which would be crazy because that'd be like running in the bulls or something.
Yeah, like the bulls, right? That's interesting. What's the iconic religious icons there in the background? I just witnessed those.
Well,
just realized they were there.
What's that?
What are they? You got the Blessed Mother. You got.
Oh yeah, I got this guy. I actually got. I sell this stuff online too. This one I'm actually gonna keep. I collect religious art. I kind of.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I always get people think I'm always like toting some religious because of the cross, but that was really a piece of art I got in Washington.
Yeah, that's a beautiful one, and this is like a vintage hand painted. It actually says Sharon's grandma Rosie Nelson painted this Mary and Jesus in 1955.
That's an iconic.
Cool.
Yeah, that's an iconic.
Yeah, it's got history. Some of these the
crucifixion
back from my personal collection, and some of them I'll sell online.
Is that right? No, I didn't know that you had.
Yeah, if we skip back to the religious art in Italy was amazing. Now, you and I both know because we've talked about it a million times, but I kind of label myself like an anti-theist, and it doesn't mean I don't believe in God. I do believe in God.
Right.
But when it comes to theology, which is basically what man says God is, I typically take issue of it. But the Vatican was the most, beautiful.
It's opulent, right?
Yeah, holy Mecca for. If you think about it's interesting. I was talking to this young couple while I was waiting online there about how it's at least one religion that has this like figurehead. There is the Dalai Lama, but every other religion doesn't really have like a superstar, like cult leader.
Well, you want to just going back to, I never was a big, as you know, I've researched a shitload of religions and because I was on a search at one point in my life, but ever since that Dalai Lama sucked that kid's tongue and he sucked the kid.
That kind of did. Yeah, I kind of didn't want to hear what the Dalai Lama had to say after that either.
I mean, it was the most bizarro, thing.
Unless that was, you don't have to agree with everything I say, but unless that was like some Chinese propaganda thing, because don't they hate the Dalai Lama?
I watched it. I saw it. It was disgusting. He actually had the kid there.
What was his rationale for doing that? He didn't know the custom here or something?
There was I don't know what the rationale was, but he asked the kid to suck his tongue.
Nobody asked him
the kid's
why.
Tongue. I don't know. I mean, these guys are so perverse. Who the fuck knows? You know what I mean?
Anyway, Pope's probably
we can start getting into that, but that's not what we're talking about
today. Well, the Pope's probably just as the papal.
Probably well, in terms of
less corrupt.
In terms of the Roman Catholic Church, this Pope is not a favorite son of anybody, especially who. And I would say the U.S. is pretty liberal about the church, and I would say he's a socialist communist. So
he's pretty liberal as far as Catholics go, isn't he?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I think the consensus here with the bishops is that he's too he's too liberal. And the thing that was most fascinating by him was him complaining to Trump about putting up the wall as the Vatican sits there with a 60-foot wall around the whole country, because the Vatican's its own country. You were there. Right. You saw it. So
yeah, there's a lot of, we could go on for hours about
hypocrisy,
right?
Yeah.
Same thing. I was back, honestly, the whole Nazi thing, I had heard like for years, like my family would talk about it, but I didn't really like research it or anything. And then going there, I see Jewish ghettos, which in Italy, they weren't like super, like there were Jews that helped out. What's the famous family? The Medicis?
The Medici, yeah. Yep.
Like they had their Jew crew in there and with the Medicis. So they valued their Jewish population. Like they didn't kill them, but they did put them in ghettos. So like when you're walking around.
They used them as bankers, didn't they? They were Shylocks for the
it's funny.
Slang
both religions basically did that to each other, but the Christians, that was some Catholic law, right? That you couldn't charge interest, I think, to a fellow Christian. If they would make the Jews do the banking, basically.
Yep.
But the Jews have a similar
they
law.
Also, right. They also can't. But
so maybe they have the Goyim doing their banking. I don't know. But I would think they wouldn't trust the Goyim. Anyway, but but then I heard about the Vatican. I don't know what Pope. It would have been during World War II. But
Pius X.
Okay. Well, he was apparently helping to get Nazis. They were like Nazi sympathizers.
Yeah, they were. He was.
And then the whole cover up of basically taking the Jewish art and jewels and gold or whatever it was that the Nazis had taken from the Jews. The church helped kind of wash it clean or something. I don't remember. It was some sort of money transaction having to do with goods that they seized from Holocaust victims.
Well, when Dan Brown wrote the Da Vinci Code, he got into some really interesting stuff in that. And there was a lot of reality to that. I mean, there's a lot of reality to that book on the Da Vinci Code. And the Da Vinci Code really, Leonardo da Vinci was a Gnostic Christian. And so was Michelangelo.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
They must have been really, it was annoying that they were being hired by the people who worship the wrong God.
Yeah, they were on the down low. They were on the down low. So the Edict of Milan. So we'll just do this real quick and then we're going to because what the hell was the woman on the front of the video? What the hell is that? But anyway, we'll get there. We're going to get to that. But I was going to say, in Constantine's transformation, when he, saw the cross on the bridge during this battle and all this bullshit, Constantine, at that point said, "Oh, he's got to adopt the Roman Catholic religion. And we really, I so don't believe any of that. But
I don't know. Don't they say the Apostle Paul is supposed to be buried there, right? It's
Yes.
underneath this big
Yep.
Bernini altar, which I got to see that. That was fucking amazing. I will say the artwork is unprecedented, obviously.
Yeah.
But
when you have all that,
if the Apostle Paul's bones are really there, that's pretty awesome.
yeah, and so's Peter's. His bones are supposed to be down there in the relic archive. They have all these.
Yeah, so I did go into the the crypt. That was,
oh, you did?
was cool. They had the bones there. Maybe that was Peter. Is that who's under there? Maybe I'm confusing Peter.
They have a bunch. They have a bunch.
Okay. Well, there was one
have,
specific saint. I think maybe it was Peter.
Yeah.
But they actually believed that he was the first pope.
Yeah, well, he was the vicar of the church.
Okay.
Quote unquote. But in reality, that nobody likes this either. Mary Magdalene was the real vicar of the church.
Oh, this is like you better not let your mother listen to this episode.
Oh, I know. She'd be very upset. I don't know. Maybe she'd come around to the reality of the Roman Catholic Church. But at
least they do give women, like a lot of other branches of or sects of Christianity have kind of brushed Mary aside.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, no one
to Catholics. I know Mary's a big deal.
Well, there's a Blessed Mother who is Mary. She's always been a big deal in the church because she birthed Christ. Yeah. But when I taught Mary Magdalene, when you get into the Edict of Milan was at that time, all of the Christians were being persecuted, and the Edict of Milan, which was imposed upon the Roman, became legislation or law, however you want to refer to it. That's when Constantine stopped the persecution of the Christians.
And then went to the Colosseum too.
Oh, you did? That's where they killed them. I mean, that's where
they got eaten by lions.
It was like championship.
I'm sure that was like Jews, gypsies, and Christians.
Oh yeah, I don't think they were partial. As long as they were human beings.
Yeah, they just are anybody, somebody,
criminals, and
parking ticket,
everybody else. Yeah, you got a parking ticket or anything. You were, and then the first council of Nicene that's when they wrote the Bible, which is such a, basically it was a battle, right? There's this gigantic room. It's like the Senate. They all go into this room with all the scriptures laying all over the table. And I don't know how, this is the story. They kind of, all these scriptures on this big table. And then whatever fell off the table, I don't know how that happened. Was it an act of divine intervention? Was it a strong wind? Was it a bunch of drunk Romans? I don't know how it happened. But whatever landed on the floor didn't get edited into the Bible.
Was that the Apocrypha? Like that didn't?
Well, this was the old. No, that's something different. This is the Old and New Testament. This is what became the Bible. And it was all the Christian bishops, Nicene. It was called the Council of Nicene. And I think it was like 320 BC. It was right at the very beginning of the church.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened after that is
what version of the Bible is that?
Oh God, I don't know. Just the version.
You have King James and New American.
Oh no, this is not King James was, I believe, a Protestant version of the Bible. This was the Roman Catholic version of the Bible.
Okay.
So what ended up happening was after that meeting and Constantine's meeting, of course, what do you think happened? Constantine sent out the Roman legions and destroys all of the Christian sects that were out there. And that's where the Gnostic Christians were destroyed. The only thing is the Gnostic Christians got word that this was happening, and their monks took all of their scriptures, all of their writings, put them in jars, and buried them in the banks of the Nile. At that point, like 350 or 340 or 330, it was, somewhere in that BC. And then in 1945, two Arab guys, Muhammad Ali was the oldest brother, which I always thought was funny. But he's the guy who ends up finding those vials. They went to seek revenge on another Arab tribe that had killed their brother. So these two brothers go to kill him. They end up killing the brother from this other tribe. They're on their way home. They find these vases. They think there could be gold in it, but they think there could be, this is how crazy it is. They think there could be evil spirits in it. So they just didn't do anything immediately. And then after a while, they were out of curiosity, they just opened them up and there were all these scriptures. They bring them back to their house and they're burning them for heat to start fires.
No, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, vast majority.
What time period was this?
1945.
Okay.
And Oxford at the time was kind of the Mecca center of translation. And they went ahead and they heard about this, and these scholars from Oxford traveled to Egypt and they tried to get these scriptures. They had heard they were there. And these guys, these Muslims, Muhammad Ali and his brother, wouldn't answer the door because they thought it was the authorities there to arrest them for avenging their brother. So there's this whole crazy story. And then eventually, they get caught up with them and they find it and they bring it back. And about 25% of the scriptures had been destroyed because they had burnt them. But the ones that did survive happened to be Mary Magdalene, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, the Gospel of Jude. I have read the Gnostic Bible, and it's one of the things that made me, convert to Gnostic Christianity and not Roman Catholic Christianity, because it was just honest. There was none of this confusion about, we'll get into this. Christ died for our sins. Well, what the fuck does that mean? I never understood that. And then priests would explain it, and it was so like, I was like, I had no idea what it meant. Didn't make any sense to me. The Gnostics were like, no, they killed him because he was a revolutionist. He was a problem. And that's where I always talk about Bob Powell's rendition of the denunciation of the Pharisees in Jesus of Nazareth. One of the greatest, just as a cinematic scene, it was just one of the greatest scenes.
Yeah, I remember it. That was like shown as like a TV series or something.
Right. It was like 7 hours long.
Yeah, I was like a kid when I saw it, but I remember it being good.
But Bob Powell was a Shakespearean actor, and I think he did the best Jesus ever.
I'll have to get some beers and a big blunt and watch it again.
No, if I can, I'll get it edited into this.
7 hours. Yeah.
Well, no, I'll get
hardcore.
the denunciation of the Pharisees in there so that people can see what we're talking about.
Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites all! For you shut up the kingdom of heaven against men. You do not go in yourselves, nor do you let others enter. Blind guides! You strain at a gnat and swallow a camel. You bow before the letter of the law and violate the heart of the law. Justice, mercy, good faith. You are like whited sepulchres, all clean and fair without, but within, full of dead men's bones and all corruption. You see these stones, do you not? I tell you, there will not be left here one stone upon another that will not be thrown down.
I have, I guess he would be like a brother-in-law to me, but a close friend or family, and he is the head curator at the Pemberton Museum or something, and they have it's a museum of historical documents, and he has a Gutenberg Bible like just sitting in a tote locked in one of the rooms, but it's not even on display.
That's worth some dough.
Yeah, it must be. But I think that's like literally the first printed Bible, right? I think.
Yes, it is. And then I've got a Bible. Well, I'm in possession of a Gutenberg Bible as well. I have one.
Wow.
Yeah. It's quite.
Anyway, what do you think's under the Vatican?
Well, I mean, I was hoping you were going to come back and let us know, for God's sakes. I mean,
I never got to hit any secret tunnels. I did go below the Vatican to view the crypts.
Well, they say
and that was pretty cool. I mean, they had crypts going back, I think, right into the 1200s, maybe the 1100s.
well, the Luciferian rooms down there, right? We know that.
Yeah, there was definitely some creepy rooms they had roped off. Definitely places that I'm sure we didn't know about, but the crypt room was pretty creepy.
Did you see? You didn't see the movie, The Pope's Exorcist with?
I did. I watched it on the plane on the way there.
Oh, okay. Wow, isn't that interesting?
It was good. Did you see it?
Yeah, I thought it was good. It was very interesting.
Yeah, I liked it. I mean, I'm a Russell Crowe fan. I mean, it was maybe a little over the top. Do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that he's a true person. I mean, that's
what I'm saying. If it's supposed to be based on a true story, they went a little Hollywood on it. Don't you think?
Oh, totally. They went a little Hollywood. But what's interesting, that exorcist, that he led the charge for exorcisms in the Bible. I think we've talked about this before because I had met an exorcist before. And they have a special Bible. They're red. They're very interesting. They've got some beautiful pictures in them. And there's only a few of them, maybe 5 or 7 of them in the world. And they always are putting new demons. I think they've run out of demons, but
yeah, because in the movie, and it won't be a spoiler alert, but remember how knowing the name of the demon is actually this important part of the ritual of banishing it.
Yes.
And
I was told that as well by this.
Yeah. So where would you'd have to have a knowledge of demonology, I suppose.
That's why there's only a few exorcists that perform exorcist. Father Machada, who was a Mexican priest, he was a guy I'd met in Utica, and you can only do a exorcism when you are authorized by the Vatican. It goes at that level. I think it's at the Pope level, or maybe a two. And
well,
so
that's how we got. Yeah, that was one of the things. Talking about the Pope is, again, you and I have discussed. The Pope to me is not a big deal, and in fact, if you were to ask my honest opinion, did you ask my honest opinion?
Yeah, I did. I always ask for your honest opinion. Sure.
Okay, then I might be so bold as to say he could be considered evil in my mind. I mean, maybe he's got a good heart, and the guy's a nice guy. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I think we've had plenty of evil popes over the course of
I mean, it's undeniable. I don't know, this Pope, maybe he's fine.
No,
but I know that the Catholic Church only a few years ago paid, I think it was $13 billion in 1 year for child sex abuse cases. Yes. So to be the head of the largest child prostitution organization, I don't know, trafficking, however you label it, something's wrong if your business or entity or country has to pay that.
I don't have any idea. I mean, it's it goes so beyond. You and I have talked about child trafficking. I've had experience in child trafficking. In other words, I had helped ICAC and some organizations at the tech level. When people can't comprehend that whole thing, so it's just in general, we're living in a society that doesn't want to. They don't want to deal with it. They don't want to understand that. They don't want to understand why it happens. That's why so much of it you can get away with it. While you were lollygagging in Rome, I don't know if you had seen that madam, that prostitution. There was a prostitution ring in Washington that got nailed.
And I must have missed that one.
Oh yeah, it's so fast. So these are all adults, consenting adults having sex, paying prostitutes or escorts or whatever they are. They're all adults, okay? And so the DA in the matter, and I don't remember, who it is. You can look it up. It's on Google. I didn't pay that much attention, but what caught my eye was the fact that they're going to prosecute all these people. We'll see if there's a lot of politicians, which there is. We'll see if they prosecute them. But what I find so interesting, they're threatening prosecution. They're going on. And then you look at Jeffrey Epstein, nothing.
Yeah, true.
So it just goes to show you the whole double-tiered processing or the double-tiered justice system in this country. But getting back to the Vatican, that exorcist, that priest, that Russell Crowe paid, he had made statements on numerous occasions that the devil lived in the Vatican.
Yeah, it's wild.
And he had conversations with the devil. So I don't know. I mean, you hear this shit. I'm just going to see if yeah. Some people have speculated the Catholic Church is a demonic institution. Still, some take it a step further and claim that Satan himself is being held within the Vatican's secret archive. I've heard this many times.
That's a wild one. I never heard that, but it brings me back to, like, you know, I'm a first principles guy, so I like to. One of the questions I asked one of the gentlemen, I guess he was a priest inside, and I've asked a million people, and I'm like, I'll just simply say, in the story of Adam and Eve, I'll say, well, where did the snake come from? So it's back to, like, the original sin story. It's back to, like, my belief is, like, well, if there was nothing and then there was this God, an entity, light force we call God, that created everything, then evil must have come from somewhere. And then somebody will say, oh, well, free will. Well, you know, God created free will too. God created the options to create evil. So how could you create something that is not of yourself? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the creator created it, then even though it was Lucifer or whatever that made the choice to be like, hey, I'm cooler than God, God made Lucifer, and God knew every choice Lucifer would make.
Right.
So the evil. So where did the snake come from? I know Gnostics look at the snake as.
Well, I mean,
actually,
they look at.
Well, you tell me, you're a Gnostic.
Yeah. Well, no, but I guess the first thing to understand about Adam and Eve is there's two creation stories inside the Bible. There are two of them.
Right.
And it was strictly a metaphor. So what happened was the Jews were exiled into Babylon, and their youth they were in the ghettos of Babylon. The Jews always end up in the ghettos, but they always get out, but they were there. They were in the ghettos of Babylon. And they were losing their youth to the pagan religion of the Babylonians. And the Babylonians had a creation theory. They had a blue god, and I don't know, he wrote some kind of mythological beast and had arrows, and, you know, it was like superhero. Anyway, because of that, the Jews started to write their own creation theory or their own creation story. There's no theory to it, which was more of a metaphor and poem. And they created.
You're not talking the Lilith thing, or you are?
No, Lilith is a whole other thing inside the creation theory, which runs alongside the devil. I mean, Lilith was supposedly, I think Eve was a descendant of Lilith, and there's this whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a story, and that's a
Lilith wanted to ride Adam, and Adam was out by that.
Yeah, and she would probably have killed Adam after she got his seed or whatever the hell goes on. And yeah, the Bible's got a lot of sex and violence in it. I mean, there's no question about that.
I argue that the Torah, actually, first 5 books, including Genesis, be probably kind of a ripoff of ancient Sumerian stories.
It is, which came out of Iraq. The Sumerian religion was, and I don't know if I ever told you the story. I was funding a company that was being funded. This is such a crazy. I'm not getting into the whole story, but the point that you're talking about, we had to go to this guy from Lebanon. We had to go to his home in Chevy Chase, Maryland. He lived in a penthouse. We were doing this funding thing, so we went to his house, and myself and 2 guys that were working for me, and we go to his house, and this is right after 9/11, maybe 2 weeks after 9/11. None of their money could come into the country because of
they froze everything.
And they froze everything. So they were just bringing us there to assure us that we're going to do the funding deal, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, so, you know, there were guys with guns there. It was pretty, it was a very interesting meeting. but anyway, he disappeared into the other room, and we're kind of small talking with these other guys, and he comes out with a bowling ball bag, and he walks over, and my chief technical officer was sitting on the couch, and I was talking, wasn't really paying a whole lot of attention. I'm like, what's he got a bowling ball? He was a little eccentric, this guy. Anyway, he takes out this thing and he drops it on my chief technical officer's lap. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? And it was the first known creation of a human into a statue. It was not the whole statue, just the human's head. And it was Sumerian. It came out of the Sumerian religion. And and it was from Iraq. There's a lot of forgery and counterfeit stuff that happens and the relic side of things in that world.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of fake stuff. I kind of believe this was kind of real. It was worn. I had seen some other things on Syrian statues. They were the first ones to create human beings, their gods or out of statues. But this was the head of one of those things. So,
oh my God. Yeah, their stories are wild. I've listened to like translations of them before.
Yeah.
They have all crazy names, and I mean, it's not super similar to the Bible, but it's got fucking cloning in it and all sorts of weird.
And Megatron was their archangel. Megatron.
Weird.
Megatron was the name of their like archangel, which would have been equivalent to Michael.
Right. But it follows the same sort of parallel, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And really, if you look at the book of Genesis, if you look at the creation story, it follows the Babylonian story. All the Jews were trying to do in the creation of Adam and Eve in the book of Genesis was, because you get into Adam and Eve and then Cain and Abel, and, you go right down through, which led into Solomon and David and that whole thing. But the whole thing, Abraham, obviously Abraham began the whole, he's the father of all of our religions.
We got to, the Isaac and Ishmael.
Yeah, we got into that a couple of podcasts ago.
Which we should get back into, because I've done some research on that too.
We're going to do a whole thing now that we're where we're at on Israel. We're going to do a podcast just specifically. I got so much to say about that. So much to say.
When do you ever run out of things to say?
Well, I don't ever, but I don't ever run out of opinions or things to say. But I got to tell you, when I know people that I love, that I care about, that are afraid to death because they're Jewish. They're living this really paranoid life. And here in the
United States, it is. Like I said, that I had several conversations with my wife on this journey.
Yeah. Well, you had a lot of time to have those conversations.
I kept covered up, man. I literally kept my tattoos covered up in public.
You did. Yeah.
There was a giant protest in front, like literally a Palestinian protest, like thousands of people, like blocking like a road that I had to go through the road to get to the Airbnb where we were staying. And I'm like, let's hang out here for an hour, kill time. I just didn't want to, just in case.
You never know.
I had a t-shirt on, man, and you could see, tattoos and stuff. And there might be crazy people that just see Hebrew writing on me. And I'm not saying this politically motivated or anything, I just said, honestly, I just felt afraid.
I don't blame you. I mean, I don't have to deal with that, but for people that do, and the Jews in the United States of America, that for the first time in their lives, they have that fear, that similar fear that people experienced in Germany. It's pretty awful. I mean,
like tonight, I just played my Italian while I was there, even though my Italian is really shitty. I know like 3 words.
Yeah.
But I tried to be a little like New York Guinea, like, hey, 30 straight, and I can say that because I'm Italian. I was like, hey.
Right.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Bada bing, bada boom. So you never saw the chronovisor.
No, I never. I did. I asked about it. I even watched like 2 documentaries on the chronovisor before
you
I went
did?
there the morning
Oh, you
before.
did?
I being a photographer, I thought it was funny because do you remember? I don't know if you're going to be able to flash any of the images that it supposedly made or it made.
Oh, we can. I think I'm going to do
Some
that.
of them are cool, but
Yeah.
like they were debunked. I
Well,
mean, they may have the machine. We don't know this.
The crucifixion was right. That was some artist, and they had.
Yeah, the crucifixion ended up being a kind of a neat angle on a statue. Basically, it was in some little church somewhere in Italy, and somebody had taken an interesting angle of the statue. And I think the one of like maybe Jesus and with disciples was actually a blurry photograph of a famous painting. So I think they were like one by one, they knocked them down as frauds.
Oh, they did. What is that noise? What was that?
That was my my nephew calling me.
You,
He
Elon?
must have sensed we're on air.
Oh God, I wish I've had one crazy couple of weeks. So I didn't have time to see if he could come and do this tonight. We were doing it late, so I didn't know if that'd be okay.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm happy we're able to pull it off, and yeah, it was an amazing journey. I think I told you before, I couldn't actually get an interview. I did interview a Catholic priest, but I couldn't do it on camera. So
What did he say? What did you ask him?
I mean, he was an interesting fellow. I did a little video clip of it that you could interject in if you wanted, but basically I had a few questions for him. First, I got to know him a little bit, and he ended up being an American priest from Texas.
Oh,
So I assume if you're going to seminary, I assume Catholics go to seminary school. I don't know how it works.
they're
honestly.
supposed to. They're supposed to. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
it's
you
probably
can-
some sort of, I don't know how that works. If you go to seminary school first, you become a priest, and then you get your dream job would be to end up at the Vatican and intern there for a period of time, because he did say he would get shipped back to the motherland, and the bishop would designate where he ends up going back to.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I think you do. I think it's like you're a Wall Street broker. You got to go to Wall Street. You did anyway back in the day. You probably don't have to anymore because it's not that relevant. But you used to have to see how the trading took place. So I imagine when you're a priest, you got to go to the Vatican, do some time there to be indoctrinated into the cult, and then
Yeah, I can only imagine what being on the inside of that must be like,
Yeah. Oh my God. And I think it's pretty tight. I think they keep a tight rein on the whole thing. Father Gabriel.
I was younger, I would even embed myself in that system. Like I always wanted to do that, a documentary where I embed myself in a cult, and kind of just go with it. And I'm secretly, I don't know exactly how to do it. Whether I've thought about it. There's one, you remember the Sun Young Moon,
Oh God. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Moonies?
Yeah.
Well, one of the
in Yankee
sons.
Stadium, they married like 1,000 people or something.
Yeah, they had mass weddings. It was like I was pretty young, but his son, Reverend Young, whatever his name was, something Sun Young Moon.
Sun Young Moon. Yes.
His son, I think, is Sean Moon, who has the Iron Rod Ministries, and they have a division of it right in like Pennsylvania.
They're still around. I think they're still around.
Yeah, he's the one who his wedding pictures, he's posing with Trump's golden AR-15.
Oh God. I don't.
It's called Iron Rod Ministries, and everybody in the church has AR-15s. That's the cult. I think it'd be cool to.
That's one I would belong
For
to.
going in, honestly, maybe ask him about UFOs, like ask him random questions that aren't like I'm focusing on the weirdness of his cult, but just go in and ask him the same shit I would ask you.
Well, you want to know something? There's a picture of one of the popes or cardinals who's got a Bible, and then he's holding the skull of an alien on the Bible. Have you ever seen that?
Can you imagine the crazy shit they have to swear yourself in at the coronation or whatever you have to do?
Yep.
It's probably worse than the Dalai Lama sucking on the tongue of a young boy.
Oh my God. I mean, I'll tell you.
know. It's probably
I'll tell you a true story. Someone I know extremely well, very good friend of mine. He's a gay guy. He had dated the heirs to the Fiat fortune. Okay, the people who own Fiat. Such a crazy story. But he was a hairdresser in Beverly Hills. He ends up meeting the mother, the matriarch of this Fiat family, and he ends up becoming her assistant before he got hooked up with her son and everything.
she was probably crazy.
Huh?
She was probably a crazy person, right?
I'm sure she was eccentric as hell. She had more money than anything you could imagine. But so what ends up happening is it's such a fascinating story because when you look at what Constantine did, Constantine was a Luciferian, and he was identified and called out by the Gnostic Christians in Egypt. Okay, their church in Egypt. And they said, oh no, we're not listening to Constantine. Emperor Constantine is a Luciferian, meaning he worshiped Satan. So they were like, we're not having, the Gnostics were totally against the merger of our religion with the Roman pagan religion. That's really what happened. I mean, Christmas, while we all have a great time and a lot of beautiful things happen on Christmas, it's the winter solstice. And that was they made all these deals with all these pagan beliefs. And I could get into, the Eucharist too. That has been considered something that was more of a demonic worshiping, because it was when you look at satanic masses, it's all about real blood and cannibalized flesh. And so a lot of people, this will get me, and I'll be excommunicated by Tuesday, but they believe that there was huge infiltration of the Luciferians into the Catholic Church. And I'm quite sure that occurred, and they were identified.
Do you know what transubstantiation is?
Yes.
They believe that when they take communion, they believe that's blood and flesh.
Yep. My mother would
That's some sick shit right there.
Yeah, she would die, saying that really occurs. And to me, that when you look at the satanic worshiping that occurs by these satanic masses, there's not. So the question is, are they mocking the Roman Catholic, or was it originally their thing? And people, there's a lot of history behind all that. But my buddy,
well, it was when the warriors won, I think it was often they would drink the blood of the
enemy,
of the slain, or like up their hero,
or he
try to get the power of
eat their heart.
Didn't the warriors do that for thousands of years?
Yeah, that was a common practice. I mean, the American Indians did it with buffalo. When they would kill buffalo, they would eat the raw heart or whatever, because they believed that gave them strength. And I don't know, maybe it does. I think you start getting into some crazy shit. But what I was going to say is, my buddy, I'm not going to mention anybody's names in this. He was volunteered at the Vatican twice a week by this woman. She sent him there. She's on the payroll. She sends him there, and he's working in the mailroom. So he's working in the mailroom, and he said that every month these refrigerated containers would come that were for the cardinals. And they were injections, and all the cardinals in the Vatican would get injected with this.
Oh my God. What do you think it was? The blood of,
I don't know. I mean, maybe it was a cancer, anti-cancer. Who knows? It could have been that. It could have been
probably stem cells or something.
Yeah, I don't know. He didn't know either. But he also ended up dating one of the cardinals who had a flat
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know if their laws about being celibate drive people to deviance, or if it's just deviant people go to a place where they can practice freely.
Yeah, I think it was cover. I think it was great cover, because I don't remember what century it was. Maybe it was the 12th century, 15th century. I don't remember when they made it so that priests needed to be celibate. Priests were not always celibate. In fact, priests were the rock stars in the village, because they were the enlightened, right? They were considered the enlightened. And so they were having sex with every woman in town, and peasant men were okay with it because we give them a certain amount of power. So their daughters were being bad. These priests were living like the craziest lives. Remember Rasputin?
I do. Yeah.
You know, that whole story with him
He was
inside.
the Russian mystic guy, right?
Right. I mean, but he was banging every woman. He was banging the czars, every one of the czars.
Oh yeah, royalty.
Governors
He
and-
came from like Peasantville.
Yeah, and remember they shot him like 9 times, stabbed him, poisoned him.
Then he still didn't die.
He didn't die. They had to.
They finally got him, right?
Yeah, they had to throw him in the river. When you go back, we'll go back to the Vatican a little bit here. The devil, it was Father Gabriel Armoth or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
The lead exorcist. He was the one who had made numerous statements that the devil lived in the Vatican. And there's a Luciferian room underneath the altar. Did you see that big altar that looks like a
Yeah, the Bernini altar.
Yeah, the Bernini altar where Christ is ascending out of hell. That's what that is.
Wow.
That's
So what do you mean? The guy said he talked the devil in person?
in the Vatican. That he was the one who had brought that controversial statement up, said that the devil was captured in the Vatican.
Oh,
Yeah,
the chief exorcist that the film was based on.
Yeah, he had said
Okay.
that.
They didn't really touch on that in the movie, though. I don't think.
No, but he had said that on numerous occasions. You know, you can Google it. You can see where he talks about the fact that that Satan lives inside the Vatican.
I think in the movie they allude. I think all of that. There is a whole bunch of evil living in the bottom of the. Oh no, it was in that like a castle.
It was in a
not-
castle, and it was though.
Right.
There was a room underneath the castle, and then there was this
Right.
abyss into hell or something. So who knows what the deal is with that? They just came out with the Exorcist, the second version. There's been 2 and 3 with Linda Blair. Did you see the new one with?
I think I only saw the first one.
Oh, there's a new one that's been out. I haven't seen it, but that's one movie that scared the shit out of me. Was The Exorcist. But there's also,
Do you think the devil's real?
you know what? I've had my struggles with it. But as time has gone on in the last 7 or 8 years, I kind of think there is. I really do. I mean, there's another interesting thing about the Vatican called the Grand Gourmet, which is I think that's how you pronounce it. It's a book that conjures up demons that supposedly the Vatican's in possession of. Not only
I just read recently Necronomicon.
I don't know that one.
I mean, it's the authors. It's like one of the most famous, super famous book, but it was terrible. I mean, it was like he's a famous sci-fi writer actually, but the book was supposed to be, it's like a fictionalized, it's basically a spell book and like a charm book to
The occult, it's an occult book.
to reanimate. Yeah, it's like a cult, I guess, but like the most famous occult book ever, with like the recipes to conjure up ancient demons and good protectors and all that kind of. Like I was not the kid that played Dungeons and Dragons.
Me either.
Yeah, I liked like J.R. Tolkien and The Hobbit and all. I like fantasy stuff, but I was never super into the wizard chants and all that kind of shit.
They were all theologians too. C.S. Lewis and J.R. Tolkien.
Okay.
They were the Lion in the Wardrobe. C.S. Lewis had some really fantastic. He wrote The Great Divorce, which was about a guy who died.
Yeah, I've heard. I read that actually.
Yeah, he didn't know it. There was all glass people. It's like a really crazy. C.S. Lewis was a heroin addict too, so I imagine he was.
Yeah, you could tell he's on drugs when he's writing some of his.
Definitely doing a lot of creative liberties with the heroin and his theological beliefs. But the Grand Grimoire is a book exactly like you're talking about. They say the Vatican is in control of it. They have it. And there is an entire chapter that summons the devil, that you can make a deal with him to gain the excesses of the world.
Well, I mean, like I tell my kids, even if you don't historically believe in Jesus or God or the devil. Like there's enough people that act it out to make it real. Like there's enough people that believe in Jesus to make that a real force. There's enough people that believe in evil to make that a real force.
The book we're talking about that I'm referencing has been referred to as the Illuminate's passageway into their great wealth and everything. And it was,
oh wow, and it's supposedly hidden in the Vatican.
The Vatican, but people have had access to it.
You have to wonder the sheer quantity of the books that they have hidden from.
Oh, it's unbelievable. You know,
there might be shit from the Library of Alexandria, right?
Yeah, there supposedly is. There's things from Alexandria, that library, during that period of time. They say there's Aristotle's writing, there's Socrates. It's probably just absolutely incredible what is available in the Vatican. They've acquired estates. You know, they've acquired so much over centuries, thousands of years. You know, people have willed their entire fortune to them. And
then you think about like you were talking about the photo or painting of the Pope with the alien head. And then but you look at a lot of like Renaissance art that was painted and they or religious art, and there is like you look in the background and you'll actually see UFOs in there.
That's
like,
right.
You could pull some up, but that's weird.
And mushrooms. The whole, you know, I mean, we always go back to mushrooms, but they're, God, what was the name of that? The fungi in the cross, or there was that whole thing that was written on the essay or the Dead Sea Scrolls. The guy who had done that, he got almost excommunicated, or did get excommunicated, because as he took the deep plunge into the historical aspects of the Dead Sea Scrolls, which was written by the essays. John the Baptist was an essay. Which was a sect, a Christian. It wasn't well, it was Christian, because John the Baptist was the original. You know, he baptized Jesus Christ in the river, and it was that at that point that Christ left and went to the desert. He was baptized and he went to the desert for 40 days.
So when that was the first time the Holy Spirit too, right?
Right. The appearance.
You don't hear about that in the Bible, that right?
No, it was in the New Testament, but you don't, that was the appearance of the Holy Spirit, which in Gnostic,
when Jesus gets baptized?
Yeah, that's when the first appearance of the Holy Spirit. But what I was going to say is the Gnostics believe that's the feminine component of the Trinity. So you got the Father, the Son, and the Mother. So
gotcha.
God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is the
and
feminine.
The Catholics think Mary is the feminine component of the God trio or something.
Yeah.
Oh,
so,
is that the main difference, you think, between the religions?
You mean between Gnostic Christianity and
Catholicism
and Roman Catholicism?
Yeah.
No, I think there's shitloads more difference, because
there's more differences than likes.
Yeah, I mean the Gnostic Christians don't believe. They believe that the serpent was God, and that Adam and Eve were speaking to the devil, because God was walking around down there and he was looking for, Adam would hide when they ate the apple. He was hiding because he was, all of a sudden he realized he was naked, and until when he didn't have knowledge, it didn't really mean anything. Then, all of a sudden with the apple, eating the apple that, of course, the woman gave him. It should just tell you something right there. But anyway, that it was at that point that they became familiar with like modesty and, all these other things came across into their.
Yeah, I mean, it is weird that, in the regular Christian Bible, God punishes. Well, that actually God curses all of mankind because of that act.
Yeah, and that's why the Gnostics don't necessarily they don't really believe that the Old Testament should be part of the Christian Bible for a whole bunch, because as you well know, we've discussed this in the Old Testament, it's an eye for an eye. And Christ,
yeah, and that brings us back to current events.
It sure does. It sure does.
Like genocide isn't cool anymore, or whatever.
Yeah,
Like in
well,
the Old Testament where it said wipe the Canaanites out, and it was every man, woman, child, beast.
well, look at
Like
what
you
God said.
can't make proclamations like that anymore.
In the times of Noah, the world became wicked, right? And that is, he wiped out humanity because he said, they're just too wicked. There's another Russell Crowe movie, his rendition of Noah. Did you ever see that one? That's such a crazy
No.
movie. It gets into the Book of Enoch. So the Enochian belief system, that's all the angels. That is all the angels.
Yeah, that's wild shit. And then we should do a show on that. The Nephilim.
Yep, the Nephilim, and
That's wild. Like I think last year at Thanksgiving, or maybe it was a couple of years ago, I brought that up, and it was the funniest conversations around the dinner table because they were all a lot of Christians and they didn't even know about those references in the Bible.
Oh, is that right? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, about because it's interesting how depending on what version of the Bible you read, what that Nephilim is. Like some people said they were like ancient angels, really big angels,
Giants.
or
They were
like
giants.
some people would say aliens,
Yep.
met gold or something. I don't remember.
Well, I think the reality of it is, if you really want to be completely technical, Christ was an alien.
Yeah, because he's not of this earth, right?
Yeah, it wasn't completely human. He was, he had components of divinity, and he possessed dual citizenship, shall we say?
But you're saying in the Gnostic teachings, the snake was actually God?
Yeah. So the Gnostics, it's really crazy. There's an entire chapter, an entire book. I don't know how many pages it is, where the demonic angels. So the whole story with that is the demonic angels get together and they're like all hanging out and Lucifer's like, we got to make human beings so we have something to rule over. We've got to, his whole component was, I've got to create a duplication of heaven where we have citizens and I can rule over them. So they all get together and they start to try and create a human being. And in that process, it's a fascinating read because they make, these demons, you make eyeballs, you guys make ears. They were all given digestive tract, you make lungs, you make heart. They were all given parts of the body that they had to go make. And then they kept trying to assemble a human being. And the problem was, this is where you get into some really interesting stuff. The problem was it had no intelligence. It was a beast. It was like it was worse than an animal, worse than a tiger or a lion.
We're talking now, this is like mysticism, Gnostics.
Yeah, this is Gnostic. They take it a step further than just the, Adam and Eve. They actually get into the fact that it was really the demonic angels.
So is there a book before Genesis in the Gnostic Bible? Or
they don't even call it that. I don't remember.
Oh, it's just totally different books?
It's totally different books. They don't take any of the biblical, the things that we know, but there's definitely components of it. So
they're not related to the Apocrypha?
No. So parts of the Apocrypha. So what probably the Gnostic is far more closer to the Apocrypha. And here's the whole thing. The Gnostics believed that I forgot what I was going to say about this. It's so complicated and I haven't talked about it in a long time, but it's that. So the Gnostics believed that we were created by Satan. Our human body was created by Satan. It was very flawed. It dies, but they couldn't get it to work. This is where kind of Lilith comes into the whole thing. And so what they did was there was a citizen of heaven called Zoe, and they had kidnapped her, and she was actually fond of Lucifer. And somehow, I can't remember she ends up piercing the veil of divinity and ends up on earth, and they take her and they rape her. This beast man ends up raping her. So his seed gets planted in her, and she starts to develop a child. And that's really where they say Adam and Eve was from.
And what is the child? Who does that
I forget with the child. It's Yabadalith, I think, was the name of the child. I can't remember.
This is some wild ass shit.
Yeah, and that's what starts the human race, and it was her divinity. So here's some theories. This is interesting stuff. That's why you don't see a lot of female serial murderers, and you don't see a lot of women that commit murder, and that's why women are more empathetic, and women are just far better human beings than we are. That's because they possess the full dominance of the divine components of God at that point.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's why we're men are closer to this beast, women are closer to the divinity of God. If you notice, in every circumstance, women are always the backbone of the church, educational systems. That's a reality. I mean, men are not. We do the collection plate in Roman Catholic Church, but the women rule the roost in both educational components of Roman Catholic schools and churches.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so that's the whole point. So the Gnostics believe that we were created by Satan, and our bodies, the material form is, so they believe in two spirits, two souls. You have your mortal soul, which is your carbon life form. And then you have the component which gives you your intelligence and your divinity, which lives inside the body, inside the brain, the pineal gland. And that is connected to the divine components of God in both any human being. So that's their
interesting. Yeah, you're giving me way more than the Catholic priest gave me.
Yeah, that was my, so I couldn't, that was my search. I went on the search because I was like, I was an altar boy and I went to Catholic schools and none of it made any sense. It was just completely bullshit. And so I
should have been sent to a yeshiva. You could have been a good Jewish boy.
Well, that's when I just, went on this significant journey after my daughter almost died in surgery. And I was just like, what would have happened to her? It was more, what would happen to her if she died? She was so young. I said, what an awful thing to have died at such a young age. And that's really what made me go, and because I just couldn't buy the religion. There was all these things where you just had to have faith. Oh, you just got to have faith. I was like, bullshit. And
that's what Sam Harris, I was reading. He's got that book on faith or whatever. And
Sam Harris
would be like, well, that's his. He's anti-religion in a lot of ways, but religion tries to steal that one peaceful, eternal rest, because life is generally a series of ups and downs and happy and sad and crisis moments. But the one time you'll get to just rest in peace is when you're dead, but not if you believe in a kind of reincarnation theory through religion.
Right.
You don't get that reprieve. God is always watching. And even when you die, if you are a shitty human being, you'll get to at least suffer for eternity, And if you were good, then you'll be happy for eternity.
Yeah. No, I think, and when you get into the character of Lucifer and Satan, the Gnostics have a really interesting belief system on that.
Yeah, that is cool, because I only heard, a lot of theologians can't answer that. My answer is, well, evil came from God. The snake came from God. It was part of creation. There was nothing here, and now there's a snake in the garden.
Well, listen, I can't stand snakes. I've got two fears: snakes and heights. Right. So
God cursed humans and the snakes. Remember, because all the other animals were basically absolved of their sin because they didn't have the choice of the freedom to decide whether they wanted the fruit of the tree of the fruit of knowledge, right? But the snake was cursed for whatever reason because it fooled humanity. The snake was cursed to crawl on its belly.
Yep.
And the humans were cursed with that shame.
Yep. Well, the whole thing.
So it is a tough love story if you're to believe that traditional Christian Bible.
Right.
It's from then on out, mankind is fucked until Jesus comes.
Yep.
And it still can't be saved. I mean, the reason why a lot of Jews would probably be like, well, I don't know if Jesus is the Messiah because, well, look at the world now. It doesn't look like it's been saved, you know?
No. Well, Jesus says too, and I think it was the Beatitudes or one of his sermons, on the Mount or something. He says you can't save the world. He knew that. He understood that, and the evangelicals have a whole other, they believe in the rapture and the descendants of about 177,000 people will enter the heaven on the day of the rapture. There's all these different things that go on. But the thing that I liked about the Gnostic religion was, one of the things was the misinterpretations inside the Bible. I thought for a man to enter the realms of heaven would be like a camel passing through the needle.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
So that's misinterpretation. Okay. What that means is, in Aramaic, which is what Christ spoke, camel means rope. It doesn't mean camel. So they were thick ropes, and they would sew these tents and all the sails with these needles, and the ropes were the rope that they used was thick, and it was hard to get it through the eye of that needle. And that's what that meant. It wasn't like it was impossible. Does that make any sense? Pushing a fucking camel through the eye of a needle?
No, but it's like, if you remember the game Telephone, you can just think about through the centuries or whatever it was handing down before it was written, or even after it was written and transcribed and translated. Yeah, of course, there's going to be some.
And then the other one,
loss.
The other thing that's misinterpreted all the time is blood is thicker than water, right? So that means if you and I are brothers, we're blood, right? Well, what's the water part mean? Totally misinterpretation. So what that really means is blood is thicker than water. Back in the day, and this happened with Abraham, he got in a trench, worshipped a whole bunch of goats and pigeons and laid that in the trench, and God got on one end, he got on the other. Abraham cut his hand, and that's how they used to make oaths, and they would mix blood and they would shake hands. So they would do burnt offerings, walk in the trench, shake hands, and that was their blood oath, right? They would shake hands.
Yeah.
The water represented the womb. This is so true. So that the concept of blood is thicker than water, blood means you and me having a closer tie in a blood oath to one another, a business deal, than me and my brother. Because in the Bible, brothers were always trying to fuck over their brothers. And so there was more strength in the blood oath than there was the water of the womb. And that's what that means. So that's another misinterpreted. Every time somebody says that, I'm like, you know what? Yeah.
I recently just read.
That's not what that means. So
I think it's. Well, that's the thing about the Bible too. I once heard a preacher say, you can actually make the Bible say anything you want to do.
Yeah, you can. Absolutely, you can.
Yeah.
So that's why it's hard to swallow the divine origins of the Bible, in my opinion. I can't literally, you have the evangelicals take a literal beliefs. And even the Catholic Church doesn't do that. They don't believe in it's the literal.
I mean, even like take it or leave it. There's some important stuff in the Bible. Historical record. And
now, listen, I am not going to be the person. I know lots of people, my aunts and people and I have good friends of mine who are Roman Catholic, and they believe in that and they find strength in that. And I'm not knocking any religion that someone has devoted themselves to, and they're usually good people. I mean, they're people who go every Sunday to church and they're devout and they do that.
That's fine. I don't like hidden evil, like coming in the name of goodness and then actually being evil. That to me is the face of true evil, But, I don't know if it comes from the devil or not, but I don't like hiding behind, like it's scarier when the clergyman is like a pedophile versus just some dirtbag living in a trailer or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To me, it seems scarier because I could have been fooled too, or whatever,
Oh God, yeah. And you want to know something? As you live longer, especially at this point in my life, and I'm sure you would agree with this, you realize that really you have to do the work. You have to figure it out yourself. I mean, whether it's your health, right? I mean, I always say, if you want to go to your doctor, that's where you would go to die. That'd be the last place I would go. I would never go to a doctor unless I had a broken bone or I had to have something operated on. Then I'd go to a surgeon and I'd go to a doctor to have my bone set. But if I'm going to live a quality life, I'm not going to a doctor. I'm not doing it because you know what they know? Here's a prescription. Here you go. Here's your prescription, right? And so there are tons of ways to avoid cancer. There are tons of ways to avoid heart disease. You can avoid it. We are built as human beings to avoid it. There are things we can do every day to avoid those things.
So I drank the holy water and hope.
I saw that.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Did you have any superpowers or?
Yeah, I mean, I just felt that. Did you see it on the video? You could see me kind of glow a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I wondered, you didn't get an erection that lasted 4 hours or anything after.
No, my feet felt a little lighter. I mean, it was really cool.
Wow.
I got this like little shudder come over me. I was like, oh, because think about this too. It's like holy water going into a Jewish person.
Oh God. We probably really don't even know. I mean, there may be a long-term metamorphosis that takes place.
Yeah, it's kind of,
right.
I don't know, yeah, it was great. I mean,
who was the woman?
A little guilty,
what
but
about
it was cool. The art was amazing.
What about the people outside?
I enjoyed talking to the few people that did talk to me.
What about the woman who flipped you off? That was the strangest shit.
Yeah, I don't know. There was I'm not even sure what was happening there. I figured it was some leftover of COVID paranoia.
She flipped you off. She was like, fuck you. Wasn't she? Did I see that right? I mean.
Yeah, you did. I mean, it was like, like I said, there's all sorts of people hanging out at the Vatican, you can't get too, like someone dressed like that isn't going to probably won't get let into the St. Peter's Basilica.
I would think not. Now, was she inside the Vatican or was she outside?
Well, she was, so anybody can walk into Vatican City, even though there is it's like going into Times Square in New York. There's like a heavier police presence there than in other parts of the city. But all sorts of people can wander in. I mean, there is a homeless problem in Italy, but one thing that's good about their socialized medicine, I guess, is like, even well, you just said don't go to the doctor, but even if you're like in a costume like that, you could go to the doctor and they would take care of you.
I would take care. Well, I mean, you can do that in this country as well. I mean, you can refuse medical.
I don't know if they lay into most hospitals looking like. Did you see the shoes on that person?
Yeah, I don't have any idea. It looked like boxes.
I was thinking it was for a balance thing because they had a giant, some sort of appendage on the back. I'm not sure I'm guessing it was like an OCD cleanliness thing. Do you think? Like wrapping yourself in plastics?
I know. I don't know. I mean, it was so strange.
Unless there's like the Satan signals coming from the basement of the Vatican and the person's just trying to deflect his Satan microwave signals.
Probably.
I don't know. I'm trying to.
Why does the Vatican have a telescope named Lucifer and a room underneath the Vatican called?
Oh, I'm not. Lucifer? Yeah, I mean, there definitely could have been some evil shit going on there.
You got to know Lucifer's probably got a gigantic ego. He's probably a gigantic narcissist, right? So he's probably like wanting to name everything. They're probably like, yo, whoa, slow down. You're gonna break cover if we're naming everything after you. So Beelzebul or whatever the other.
Oh, and they had all. Yeah, I'm sure there was they were conjuring up some weird shit down there. I wish I had a backstage pass, but they wouldn't even talk to me. Like I said to you, he would talk off camera, but it was pretty locked down. And the security, there were certain rooms that you couldn't even have the camera out or the security would remove you.
I was just coincidentally, I saw a priest being interviewed, which is unusual, right? Because we've tried to get priests. They do not like to be interviewed, but this priest was being interviewed. And this is so funny. he had met Satan twice, he said. So I forget where he said he met him the first time, but I remembered the second time he met him.
Yeah.
He met him at Nikki Beach in Miami, which I'd been to. I'm like, oh my God, what? You know, every time I go to Miami, I go to Nikki Beach. Nikki Beach is a beach club, but the back part of that establishment lays on some of the best beaches in Miami. So, but I guess so. This priest said he had seen Satan there. I'm like, wow.
But you went and you never got to see.
I wouldn't. I'm sure. I'm quite confident in my life. I've come into close brushes with.
I don't know how. Like, why is Satan so present and God isn't? You know, or like, you know,
that's
George Carlin said. You know, Jesus, if you just show up for a 5-minute press conference, it'll clear a lot of misconceptions.
Clear it all up. Yep. Well, I think,
hey, guys over in the sandbox, I'm gonna have to take your toys away if you don't play nicely.
Well, you know the story. We've talked about this before. I think the answer to that is this is not the realm of human beings. This is the realm of demonic angels and Satan. Because when you look at the scripture and you look at the plight when Christ goes to the desert, he's hanging out there, hasn't eaten in 40 days, 40 nights, or whatever it was. All of a sudden he stumbles upon Satan. He's like, oh yeah, I know you. They know one another. They have a past. Oh yeah, you're God's son. He's like, he wants to kill him immediately, probably, or convert him. And so he brings him on this great big plateau, shows him all of the kingdoms of earth, and says, if you bow down to me, you can have all of this. And of course he refuses it. But the point is, in that scripture, there's two scriptures that are my favorite. That's my favorite, because what is really going on there is they're saying, hey, this is not realms of God. This is realms of demonic angels. And say, you're in occupied territory, and it's up to you to survive that.
That's kind of, I think a lot of Jewish people feel that way too, that like hell or the lessons you're supposed to learn in this cycle is here on earth. Like it's not so much a hell that you'll be damned to, but you'll be suffering on this earth. Yeah.
And I think when you talk about, they always talk about apocalyptic ends. I think people have apocalyptic occurrences every day. I think the Jews that were kidnapped, and I think that's apocalyptic. I think we all have had apocalyptic occurrences in our life. Has it devastated the world yet? But someday that could happen, I think. I don't know that it necessarily will, but that particular scripture, I mean, that's what they're saying. They're saying, hey, we're in occupied territory. You should know that. And then
there's another cool scripture that harkens back to, I think it's St. Peter, but somebody could fact check me on it. But the line in the Bible where Jesus goes, get thee behind me, Satan.
Oh,
but he's actually talking to, I think it's Peter,
right? That's when
right. So
yep.
Some people have theorized that since Peter was the first pope, Jesus was basically cursing the Pope, saying that basically you're full of shit. Not everybody agrees with that assessment.
No, but that is a true thing in the Bible, where Peter becomes possessed by a demon, maybe Satan, and that's when Christ sort of casts that out of him and says, go behind me, or whatever his comment is in that. Yeah, that's a true. Yeah, you know more about the Bible than most Roman Catholic and evangelicals that you would talk to.
Well, I'm a Jew, but I had to, they sent me to Christian school I didn't have to go to Hebrew school, which was good. I didn't really want a bar mitzvah, but then after years later, I was like, oh, it would have been neat, even though every 13-year-old boy is like, fuck that. I don't want to do that. Except the money. You want the money from it.
Right. The other one is the raising of Lazarus. That's another, that was the nail in the coffin for Christ. Quite honestly, that was the thing that they said, okay, we gotta kill this fucking guy. So
my son said, I don't know how old he was on the Lazarus story, but he was like, okay, so is Lazarus technically a zombie? I'm like, I guess you're technically, yeah.
Technically, he might be right. I don't know what condition he was when he came walking out of the tomb, but yeah, there's the thing too about the Vatican, God knows the stuff that is there. That would be so fascinating. You know, how long were you in the Vatican for?
Oh, we spent, I would say, half the day.
Okay. What
5 hours, maybe.
what was the
6 hours.
most? What was the most? What was the most like you went, holy fuck, or what was the thing there?
I mean, as soon as you walk in, man, as soon as you gotta wait, like anybody can walk into Vatican City, but we were there like 8 a.m. because I met these people that said go at 7. Otherwise, you'll be waiting for hours. But I think we got there a little late, like 8:30 or something, and it wasn't bad. We waited about an hour. But once you get inside of St. Peter's Basilica, from the moment you step inside, you're like, holy shit. You can't believe human hands made this stuff. So you could see that, like,
Yeah.
how people would believe, especially in the 1500s or something. You know, now we see all this crazy shit, beautiful buildings all over the world, and we're inundated with images and beauty and whatever. And it's harder. I mean, I think that's why a lot of millennials have problems connecting to reality, is because, you know, we have enhanced reality, whether AI and all this stuff that shows us this incredible stuff that doesn't look real. But when you walk into the Vatican, it's real and right in front of you. And it's just, you've never seen art that beautiful and that big coming at you all at once.
What about I always hear about this is the energy, you know, is it Glenn Beck? I heard him in an interview maybe 2 years ago where he went to the Vatican and he felt that it was believable, you know, unbelievable. Everybody says that, but there was one priest or cardinal that was involved that he thought was just so evil that he just got this bad energy from him. But
I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess I wasn't, I approached a few, like I was trying to interview people, like I told you. I was told hang out outside the cathedral. Inside, it's very kind of regulated, a lot of guards. And
do you take pictures? Did they let you take pictures? Or
I did. I sent some video.
I saw the video, some of it, but
okay.
Were they restricted?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I took my nicer camera in. I was shooting too.
Yeah.
What I sent you was on the phone, but better chances getting interviews from younger priests on the outside the Vatican itself. The guys working inside were these old men, and they would often play like the language card. Maybe some of them really didn't speak English, but they would pretend they couldn't speak English or just ignore me altogether, like keep walking really fast.
Yeah.
But I did try to, and I finally did get somebody, but I couldn't get him on camera. But yeah, no, it was beautiful inside. I don't know, dark energy down in the crypt. It was definitely creepy as fuck. The altar itself, the famous Bernini sculpt. Bernini did some dark ass shit.
Oh yeah.
He's got
a lot of them. A lot of them did.
Statue. I think it was at the Met, maybe. That wasn't at the Vatican. But it's one of the saints kind of standing there holding his own head. It's a really cool, I like kind of macabre, crazy.
Saint Thomas that was,
I don't remember. It would have been one of the guys that probably was beheaded.
Yeah.
But the altar, which is supposed to be over St. Peter's bones.
Yep.
Is a giant, goes up multiple stories, black. So it's this really ominous looking.
Is that right?
mean, it looks kind of evil, to be honest with you. And then behind it is he did the altar behind it, which is the largest, I think, brass casted sculpture in the world, like the heaviest and most amount of brass. And that's crazy looking too, right out of a Gothic horror movie.
Well, that's like American Horror. That's the Ascension out of hell, right?
It's crazy shit.
Yeah.
Like if I did mushrooms and went there, maybe we should do that sometime.
Whoa, I would do it, but I mean that would bring a whole other dimensional aspect to.
I mean, it's all kind of. I mean, the Catholic. I love religious art, but like just the iconography of the dead figure on it's dark. Like there was a remember the dark side?
Yep.
It was Gary, or no, the Far Side. I'm sorry, Gary.
Oh,
Cartoon, The Far Side.
Yep, I do. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Oh, there was a cartoon. He had two aliens, and they come down, and they're standing at the crucifixion,
Yeah.
and they both look at each other, and they're like, "We better get the fuck out of here."
Yeah.
Like they just happen to come on the wrong day, and they're like,
Yeah. Good Friday.
What's going on here?
Right. There's nothing good about Good Friday. The other would you have me just thinking about the whole component of David Wolf. Have you ever heard about David Wolf?
Yeah,
I know
him. Yeah.
Well, he's dead.
The mushroom guy, David Wolf?
No. There's another. Is it David Wolf? He's the guy who measured the frequencies of everything. He had a thing.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking of the wrong guy. I'm thinking of the Mr. NutriBullet, and he sells
not the mushroom
powders.
No. But anyway, I'm pretty sure it's David Wolf. I can't remember exactly, but he's an interesting guy. I mean, April Hanna had gotten me.
Okay,
up on
we're gonna have her on the podcast.
I know we do. I'm gonna contact her this week. But anyway,
she probably knows deep dark secrets about both of us.
Oh God, we'll just throw it out there. That'd be some podcast if we were to just have our therapist on. But he measured frequency, and he had this whole thing. Fascinating guy. But his in the measurement of frequency, some of the things that had the lowest frequency were all like the Bible, all of the iconic religious books all had like really low frequency, like radio wave.
It was probably, it says there's good people that live within the system and there's bad. That's what I tell my kids. Like, despite your label, there's got to be some good shit. There's got to be some bad shit. And sometimes there's heavier concentrations of one over the other, but.
Right. And, my whole thing is I'm just going back to it because I don't want to sound like I'm anti-religion. I'm not. I just think.
No, neither one of us are, even though we're sometimes critical of.
I'm always, whether it's politics or religion, I'm always critical of the leadership.
Which is good. That means you're thinking.
Yeah. And I think we have to be critical of the leadership.
I think the real Jesus would have encouraged thought.
He was a goddamn crazy man. I mean, he went into the temple and flipped over tables and took out a whip and a stick and was kicking the shit out of everybody.
He was a social reformer.
Yeah, he was not a pacifist. I always hear that. I'm like, he was not a pacifist. He told the Pharisees to go fuck themselves, basically. I mean, in the times, that was the language. He called them, bleached bones and spiders and scorpions. And I mean, he wasn't messing around, but yeah, so Christ was absolutely a revolutionist, and there's lots of misconceptions about him, and the people who've taken over his narrative and tried to define him in a way that he really wasn't. And but like you were saying, you had a friend. You can make the Bible say whatever you want it to say, and that's the unfortunate part of it. I mean, look at the guys that have created cults based around Christian belief systems and things.
I mean and again, no offense to Catholics, but the Vatican's pretty culty, if you ask me.
Listen, I've said this to my family. When you got guys that are dressing like Liberace, literally, right, and lugging gold candle, I'm just saying,
crosses and incense. They said there used to be cannabis inside those.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. They literally found cannabis in ancient, I don't know what you call those, the incense holders.
I used to have, when I was an altar boy, we had to learn how to use the, whatever that thing is. But yeah,
but think about it. It would kind of heighten your senses and make it, you imagine walking into the Vatican and you're breathing in big, bong hit size hits of air, but, cannabis air.
Yeah. Well, that's it. That's when it goes back to, we had talked about this earlier on the mushroom thing. The church was the catalyst in scaring people from using and making it illegal to use mushrooms during that period of time, like the 10th century or whatever it was, because only priests could be enlightened, and mushrooms will enlighten you. Psychedelics will enlighten you. And there's the guy, I can't think of the guy's name who did that. You and I talked about that book where he gets right into it pretty in a big.
Oh, the Cosmic Serpent.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, yeah. I mean, that's why they've probably been used. Psychedelics have been used, for millennia in religious ceremony. I mean, that's where they went wrong. They tried to outlaw it, but that's where you actually do connect with, and that all life is interconnected. That's the one time you actually do feel outside of theology, right?
Yeah,
I never felt it in theology. I felt it when I was on
never felt
psychedelics,
it.
the oneness of all life.
I never felt it in theology either. So, but I did feel it when I did mushrooms.
So that's fascinating.
And there's all kinds of, you were talking about the Christian art with flying saucers. There's Christian art with mushrooms all over the place. And until you have this conversation and you go, look, if you're to just type in Christian art with mushrooms, you'd be shocked. You'll be like, you don't notice it until somebody tells you, oh, you look at this, and then you start noticing it. Just like the flying saucers. There's definitely flying saucers in Christian art. But it's all kind of fascinating. I don't know where we end up at the end of the day.
We might have to have a part 2 on this one, because we should get some theologians in. We always talk about that.
We got to find them. They're so hesitant.
I think I'm working on one. I think after the first year, we might be able to lock it.
Oh, really?
I think it's Protestant based person.
It wouldn't matter. I mean, we could just get right into the whole theological movement. The guys that I used to know, I don't even know where they are today, that were theologians. They taught at Villanova. They were Augustinian priests.
Cool.
Yeah, they would have been great. I should try and track them down and see if they would. They would definitely get on. They were kind of rebellious guys.
Well, that's what I love. I know. Sometimes I wonder if it needs like a real, like someone like you or I to just go inside the system and work inside out.
Yeah. Well, are you talking about like one of those Hollywood movies where you get into the prison and you're like,
yeah, but like, you could really work it. You have to play. It's like anything, like in the corporate world, you have to play within the rules.
Oh, yeah,
being a politician.
Yeah.
Like some people play outside the rules, but
I'll have to see if I could get a hold of a couple of guys I know. I just haven't at this point, but they may do it. But we got into it pretty good on the City of God by St. Augustine when he wrote that. He changed it like 7 times to appease the Orthodox Christians of the time, which kind of made me feel he was politically expedient. He was really looking for politics, and his history would that's where he was. So.
I met a bunch of Greek Orthodox people, both in Israel at like I can't remember the name, but it's the Church of the Holy Tomb, has the Holy Sepulchre inside of it.
Oh yeah, yep.
And the Greek Orthodox also claim to be like the closest to the original. They're the ones in the long black robe and the white beard.
Yep.
I'm not sure, like the religion, the holidays are a little bit off. Like Easter's a little later than
Russian Orthodox too.
They claim to be the real Christians.
Well, the Russian Orthodox and then the Coptic Christians, they're actually the closest you can get to the Gnostic Christian, the Coptic Christians, which are they're Egyptian. So yeah, there are still remnants of these other Christians, but I think the Russian Orthodox and the Greek Orthodox come under the Catholic Church, the Pope. I think they do. I think they practice the dogma of the church. So they do come underneath that.
Well, he's a powerful figure, and it's interesting that because they look at him almost like a deity, right? He's like,
they do.
Yeah.
I mean,
he has final word or something. I don't remember the name, but the papacy means that like what the Pope says.
Yeah,
like. Yeah, there's a word for it, but it's like final.
He's got divine. I can't think of the word right. This is all stuff I haven't talked about in long time, but
Yeah, both you and me. I mean, I'm not, obviously, like I said, I'm not Catholic. But
yeah, but he infallible speech.
yeah,
That's what
something
it
like
is.
the word
It's
that he's yeah. Which
it's
that's scary. That's cult shit right there, right? That's what happens is
yeah.
Jim Jones or whoever it is says drink the Kool-Aid and
I don't remember the last time there was an infallible speech by a pope. I don't even know if that's ever existed, but I do know they used to give the Crusaders, they would give them absolution from all their sins before they go into battle. I know that they would give like mass, absolution to these warrior, to the knights and everything before they would go into battle. So,
well, yeah, I mean, do you think the Pope looks at himself in the mirror and he's like, yeah, it's good to be the fucking Pope. Like
it's good to be king.
I'm ordained by God. Do you think they actually believe they're ordained by God?
I don't
or do you
know.
think they're like,
no, I don't. I don't believe that they think that, because there's no way that you can get to that level and think that primitively.
Or you either have to be like a psychopathic narcissist or literally ordained, or a Satan worshiper or literally ordained by God. I don't know which one, but none of them sound fun to me.
No, none of them. I wouldn't want that job for all the money in the world. I wouldn't want it. It's just, I don't know.
I'm not dissing, I'm an equal opportunity.
Well, listen, let's just kind of, when we're concluding the podcast, when you look at what's going on in Israel, what's going on in Gaza, what's going on in the United States, all of us, we all think that our God's the right God. It's all the same God. So how does that make
everybody has God on their team, right?
Yeah. And what's so fucked up about that is, what's he thinking? If there is a God, as he's looking down, watching all this shit go on, or looking wherever he looks through, a parallel portal or whatever God's doing, how does
from the throne?
How does he view the world? And then the second part of that is it all just aliens? And we just had no way of interpreting that because we didn't have a knowledge of anything. So we just said it's God, but it could be we're just a great big fucking.
Could be, or like you said, by definition, Jesus is. But my other question that I always ask, which I also asked at the theologian at the Vatican, is what about the people that are like woke up on the wrong side of God? So in other words, you're into like, if we take the current situation in Israel and in Gaza, the Palestinians in the Old Testament are actually called Philistines. Like not everybody knows that.
Yeah.
So go back to David and Goliath story. What happens if you just happen to be born on the wrong side of the border and you're
the wrong side of the tracks?
You're a Philistine, and now God just doesn't like you because you're on that. Like, that's not cool. What if you're just a person born there?
Yeah, and I guess that would get into the whole concept of the segregation of my religion is better than your religion. Because I'm a chosen person, you're not. I mean, you get into all that. That creates you.
Yeah, I like to flex that a lot. Yeah, but like my uncle said, like I like to mess with white people.
You can.
Yeah, God chose us. I didn't choose it. God chose us. He didn't choose you. And I get people mad at me, but I'm being silly. But it is wild to think that like maybe if it is true,
there's any reality to that, and that we're everybody else.
What do I know? I mean, the only prayer I have ever truly prayed, or like if I had one wish that could be fulfilled as far as like a deity or God in my life, it'd be like, well, if it's real, just manifest it to me, because I've never, just like with the devil, I've never unequivocally said, oh, that's the devil right there. I've never done that with God and been like, oh my God. I've had blessings and awesome things, and maybe some people would call it luck or a miracle, but I've never been like, holy shit, that was divine intervention right there.
Yeah.
That's just me personally.
Yeah, no, I think we all experienced that moment where, you pull it out of the fire, or some crazy thing happens that's not supposed to, and your immediate reaction is, as you know, they say that there are no atheists in a foxhole, and I probably believe that. You know, they're
What do you have to lose at that point? They're like,
yeah, no, and
it's real, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
the other thing is, what have you got to lose? There's nothing about God that is bad in reality. I mean, just believing that you should be good, you should treat people like you want to be treated, and all those things. I just don't see what the harm is in it. I think it's not such.
It would definitely is a system that works for some people, right?
Yeah.
There's people that take advantage of it.
Totally.
Some people can live a healthy existence, non-toxic lifestyle within, and some people abuse it like everything else.
Right. No question about it. But anyway, yeah, it's all complicated. It's very difficult to try and understand and figure out. And then just religion's killed as many people. Somebody did a study on that. How many people died in the name of religion?
Yeah, it was in that at the end of that movie where so Robert De Niro plays the devil, and he said there's enough religion in the world to make people, not enough religion in the world to make each other love each other, but enough to hate each other.
Right. Is that was that?
So that's kind of a sad commentary on.
Yeah, I think that was
on the state of affairs. That even though we have the presence of God, or the presence of religion or theology or whatever, there's still this rampant evil that exists. In fact, so much I can't filter it all. If I watch media all day, and then you have to filter what's true media, what's fake media. But then half of it's so horrible, you don't want to pay attention to a lot of it. Anyway, I can tell you this. It's more than likely that mankind has not figured out, we haven't figured out the material world. So what's the likelihood that we've completely figured out God?
We can figure out this.
What's the likelihood that theology is 100% correct and man has actually figured out what God is or how to get to God? In my mind, that percentage is not super high.
Right. No, I agree. I agree with you on that completely. I think that we, I don't know. I mean, it's complicated issues. There is a component of faith that you would have to have faith in. And,
well, you're right about, that's another thing I learned is that faith could be 51%. Like, hey, I'm going to choose, you know what? I like what Jordan Peterson says. He said, doesn't matter if it's real. I choose to live my life as if it is.
He's an interesting guy. And he's also,
like or hate him, but he does say some shit that resonates sometimes,
I'll tell you what, he described the music one time, and he described his belief on music. And he also described the crucifixion, which I found fascinating, but his whole belief on the crucifixion is not the crucifixion, his thing on music. I was so taken back by it. It was like, he's a deep thinker. He's a really deep thinker. And he said that music is on the cusp of chaos, and then it becomes organized. And it's just that whole, I'm trying to think maybe he was on with Joe Rogan. I can't remember who the podcast, but when he described his thoughts on music, I was just like, wow. I mean, that's a deep thinker.
Yeah. Sometimes he
can be pretty profound, right? He's had, cakewalk life. I mean, his wife had a pretty significant, difficult cancer, and his daughter had issues with food and allergies that were really.
Yeah, he did too. He's got a weird diet. I think he just eats meat.
That's all he does.
Wild.
He only eats mushrooms and beef, and with salt and pepper. That's it. But I mean, it works for him, I guess. So
whatever works, brother.
Yeah, whatever works. But anyway, Jude, I think we can call it a day. What was the best food you had while you were there? What was, if you could say, oh my God, this dish was the best, what one would it be?
I would say, I mean, the food is amazing. I will just quickly say that. I will say a quick thing about the American diet. The average lifespan in Italy is 10 years longer than it is in the US for both men and women. I just want you to digest that. And here's the other fun thing. Everybody in Italy smokes. So what does that tell you? That tells you it's either our food or the stress in the US that's like killing everybody 10 years before the Italians. The food is amazing, obviously. And
there's no Mountain Dew. There's no Mountain Dew in Europe. There's no Mountain Dew in Italy. Okay.
True. Yeah. That's true. Honestly, I didn't see any soda. It's wine.
They have a version of soda.
As they call it out here in Iowa, they call it pop.
Right.
Yeah, I think we had this one meal.
No obesity. There's no obesity. Was there? Did you see any?
Oh, no. I mean, it's right. I mean, I saw the only obese people I saw were American tourists for sure. That was amazing too. Just, it's weird. You definitely notice it. Me being a photographer, I notice it too. But we had one meal. It started out with like wild boar tortellini. And then Bree asked the waiter,
words, man, they love,
is this local or whatever? Cause it's agro-tourism or something. And the guy goes, yeah, it's out back. I shot it, and then this venison loin comes out with like roasted chestnuts and the wine they make there. And the venison was amazing. Is it local? Yeah, I shot it out back and the chestnuts are from in the yard, So, I mean, it was really amazing. And when you go into a restaurant, they have all the steaks and the beef is hanging in the front window with the genealogy.
Oh, you're kidding.
And then you order whatever. If you get a steak, the guy cuts it and then they bring it to you and present it to you like a bottle of wine. Like, hey, is this cut okay? Like they give a shit about what you're eating there.
No, they do. That's why they don't have the obese issues. People don't have all of the things related to obesity and all of the disease.
Even in the French, they're eating all butter and fat and cheese and all this, and their lifespan is longer.
Well, that's the new thing too with heart patients. You know what they tell you to do? They go on a carnivore diet.
And eat a stick of butter with
and cancer,
pound of steak.
Yeah, those fats, and they really try and tell you it's got to be grass fed because grass fed beef has because of that, it's not corn, so it's not shit. It's clean beef, they call it, and that grass fed beef has a whole other level of fats, saturated fats that help the heart, the brain. The best thing in the world you can do is eat liver. It's for the brain. Boom. It's the thing that will.
I haven't had it in years. Have you?
Oh yeah. I have it once a month.
Okay. Yeah. You probably gotta force yourself. I remember my cousin. Oh, Ruben and I would go to the terrible diner in Schenectady in New York was. There was always arrests happening outside Brandywine Diner.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Usually somebody was getting arrested outside.
Yeah.
But we would get the liver special because it was the cheapest thing that you could get, like a 4-course meal.
Yeah.
For like 11.
It's the onions and bacon on it too, right?
Oh shit. I think I lost power, buddy.
Oh, I can hear you and I can see you. So you're good. But anyway, yeah, I go to Bob's Diner over in Ward of Elite and they still have it on their menu. They have liver and bacon with onions. Fantastic. But I'll cook up,
right?
Yeah. I'll cook up a thing of liver. It's best thing if you can do it once a month, it diminishes your Alzheimer's probability by like 40%. All you got to do is do that. It's so dense. The nutrients in it are so dense, but it's all got to be grass fed. It's got to be grass fed beef.
I think
you dying?
Yeah, my switchboard is dying of power.
Okay. Well, we're going to wrap it up anyway. It was fantastic seeing you again, Jude. You always do bring the dramatic theatrics to our podcast. We've got to do a podcast like we were talking about in robes. We will be doing that.
Oh yeah, I'll definitely. I have the. I didn't wear the robe to the Vatican because I was afraid they wouldn't let me in because
I'm
they
sure
do
they
have.
wouldn't.
Yeah, but I did. I was able to wear the robe for breakfast at a monk's monastery. And,
You went to a monk's monastery?
yeah, we stayed at a monastery in
Oh, that's interesting.
Tuscany. Yeah, and I
Did
wore
you-
the robe to breakfast several times, and there was a like an English couple in there. One guy
Mhm.
was giving me pretty dirty looks. I
Oh,
felt
really?
like Hugh Hefner. You know,
Oh,
yeah, no,
God.
it was great. Actually, on another podcast, we could talk about it. But the Nazis, it was like it was a monk's monastery since like 1100 A.D. right up through
Oh, medieval.
polio killed a whole bunch of people, and then the Nazis. It became like these winemakers moved in, and then when the Nazis came, they drank like maybe from 1939 up to 1942's wine cellar, and I got to go in the wine cellar. And then the monks took it back, and then a private family bought it, and now it's like a agro-tourism
No
monastery.
monks, though. There's no monks there.
No, the monks have long died out, but I was in the Rome where, you know, the monks were. We stayed in the monks' quarters. It was pretty cool.
Oh, that's interesting.
And after all, guys like you and I are actual monks, like, because we're out there searching for the truth. And
We are.
to me, that's a true sojourner of the divine. And I hope that I do believe that the divine blesses you, people like you and I that are searching for the truth.
I agree with you. The truth shall set you free, right? That's a great quote.
Amen, brother.
And I totally believe it. With that said, I think we're done today.
All right.
Excellent.
Sayonara.
Thank
Good
you.
one.
Thanks for sharing
Yep.
everything.